standard reference design. To use the 2018 language for the standard reference design. Okay, and we've talked about this a lot today, so I don't want to over discuss it this time because we've discussed this very thing already. But okay, is there a second for Gary's motion? Okay, I'm not hearing a second. So the motion dies for lack of a second.
Unbelievable.
I'll second.
Okay, Andrea is seconded, so now we have a motion to amend, which is currently the motion on the table. And I wonder, the tag has talked about this issue before, so let's make sure our comments are new and in reference to the main motion and the amendatory motion's relationship to the main motion, because if things have changed because now we're talking about proposal 38, then let's talk about that. Okay, Gary, do you want to talk to your motion?
No, it's pretty much there, and I know that we've debated this back and forth, so I'm perfectly fine if everybody else is to just go ahead and vote on this amendment. Like I said, I think we've debated it. I know that there's some hands up, but I'm fine with just going straight to a vote on this one.
Okay, well, I need to go through all the hands up. So, Poppy?
So just a clarifying question first. Are we discussing this amendment or discussing the overall motion?
We're discussing only the amendment right now. We're going to discuss and then vote on the amendment, which is to add this to the main motion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I would say regarding the amendment, I think that this possibly should be a change, maybe not, but I think that that's exactly what David Reddy was suggesting, that we actually look at how things should be changed in the standard reference design and look at that in relation to the percent reduction targets that are in the compliance section. So I guess that's my thought. I want to consider this and other options, but I'd like to do it in relation to those targets and not do it now.
Okay, thanks, Poppy. Henry, you're up.
Yeah, just for clarity, if we are going this route, these code change proposals should be based off the 2021 as it was adopted. And that does include a heat pump water heater as the standard reference design for water heating. So if folks think that we're going to reference the 2018, we need to clarify that here. So it probably takes another section to revert back to 2018 language from 2021, if that's what folks are talking about. And once again, without beating a dead horse, this seems like we're just going like for like compliance here. So a gas house can achieve whatever 36% savings, and a heat pump house achieves 36% savings, but we're still stuck at the basic fundamental issue that the heat pump house is still, half the energy use. But if you go through this route of modeling, we've lost that comparison that the rest of the code has been pretty strongly adopting for the last 3 code cycles. I might be misreading this wrong, but I just want to bring that up one last time. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. Dave Balon.
No, Henry, you're not reading it wrong. This is one more attempt to essentially remove the ability to regulate the entire energy use of the house, rather and break it into 2 pieces, one for gas and one for electric. The fact that those are not equal is not a consideration, but in the gas company's line, they're equal, but they're not. I can't understand why this keeps coming up, but this is the, like you say, third time, maybe the fourth time that we've had this, this proposal, each time more difficult to understand. And I think we should dispense with it as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Dave. Yes, I think we should bring up new points on this. Go ahead, Greg Johnson.
I was just going to say, with this, if this amendment passes, I think this is fully complies with EPCA on the performance pathway. It doesn't address the prescriptive, but I think that fixes all your legal challenges on this one path if you include this amendment. So I like it.
Thanks, Greg. Go ahead, Larry.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. I disagree with Dave Balon dramatically because you're looking at the energy use. So the heat pump is going to have a certain energy use, and so is the gas furnace, but they both have to have that same energy use, okay, in order to be compliant. So they're both using the same amount of BTUs. Now, maybe using the heat pump, maybe his cost is going to be less. It all depends on what the cost of the fuel is, okay, or the energy. But BTUs are BTUs, Dave, and they don't change. And depending on how you get to those BTUs is what counts. And if you're over in the Spokane area and it's 10 below, those BTUs cost more when you're using heat pumps than they do the same with BTUs on gas. And so the BTUs is the BTUs, and the cost is what it's the energy use, not the cost, Dave. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Henry, you're up.
Cost is not part of the energy code in Washington State. So, and in terms of BTUs or BTUs, that is, Larry, you're talking about 1 BTU of heat delivered to a room. We're talking about the BTUs of energy supplied to the system to deliver a BTU of heat. Energy use is dependent on the energy consumption of the equipment to deliver a BTU of heat. A heat pump is more efficient at delivering a single BTU of heat. That is COP or HSPF. That is saying you get 2 units of heat out for 1 unit of heat in. A gas furnace delivers a fraction of heat out for 1 unit of heat in. That is my main concern here. Once we start comparing like for like, is that you're on different playing fields when you look at the annual energy use across a year, which is what this entire code is focused on, and the prescriptive values and our final targets of the energy code. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. Okay, Larry, you're back up.
Yeah, Henry, I do calculations every day of the week. And the bottom line is how many BTUs it takes to heat that house. And if I have to use a 95% gas furnace, those BTUs coming in are calculated with the energy loss for that. And if I'm using a heat pump and I get a gain because my temperature is above 30, that's the same. So I can gain for that. I totally understand that, Henry. But what the bottom line is by the end of the year, how much has the home used by the end of the year? Okay, thank you.
And I'm happy to send you a plethora of modeling studies, not only from myself, but from PNNL, from DOE, that show the difference in an annual energy consumption between a gas heating system and a heat pump heating system. There's tons of data out there. It is not a magic calculation. It's an inherent difference between those two pieces of equipment, and that is energy consumed, not heat amount delivered. Thank you.
All right, I think we will do a roll call vote. So the motion on the table is to amend the motion. So we're not voting on the main motion, voting to amend the motion to include this table with the reverting back to 2018 language on what the baseline reference design is for the heating system for a building, for a residence. So that's the motion. The motion is to approve an amendment to the main motion, not the main motion itself. With that, let's take a roll call vote.
Damon Doyle,
Yes.
Mike Fowler,
No.
Dwayne Johnlin,
I'll vote. This is Ray. I'm his alternate.
yeah, I was just checking to see if he was still on the roll,
I
so,
don't think he is.
Ray,
No.
Dave Balon,
No.
Jonathan Jones,
I apologize. Small technical difficulty. The mouse just did not want to pop where it was supposed to go. No, thank you.
David Reddy,
No.
Gary Hickman,
Yes.
Andrea Smith,
Yes.
Irina Respetness,
No.
Hoppy Storm,
No,
That's all.
Ray Davenport.
Oh, Albert Brooks. No.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Henry Odom,
No.
John Lang,
No.
Patrick Hayes, Luke Howard, Liz Reichert,
No.
Jason Carter,
Yes.
Jeanette McHugh,
Yes.
Jonah Kinchy.
No.
Motion fails 12-5.
Okay, motion fails 12-5. We are back to the main motion, which is moving forward the sections from proposal 38, R405.2.21, and striking the table R45.2.2. We discussed this at length. We could continue discussion or we could vote on it. I am willing to risk a voice vote on this thing because I'm not seeing any hands up. So the motion is to adopt, I just restated it a second ago. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, those sections of 038 are moved forward. We are now to discussing 039. Okay, anybody, we've been going for 2.5 hours. We have another 45 minutes. I feel like we need a couple minutes of break here. So let's take a 5-minute break. So we'll be back at 3:18. back to. All right, welcome back. Greg, do you want to talk about 39?
Yeah, so I mean, this is addressing some of the same areas that we just talked about. I must say, I mean, there's two different views, site versus source, which we've talked at length. What we, on the site-based view that we just passed on Johnny's proposal, I think is a valid view when you compare it to the federal standards, like Gary's amendment, which failed. When you're trying to compare site-based energy without looking at that, and comparing heat pumps versus gas, you're doing an apples to orange comparison. And so there's a problem there, and that you really kind of need a source-based view if you're going to ignore the federal standards. So I think we should, I mean, look at this proposal that's in front of us as a parallel path in those terms, because the one that was just passed doesn't quite address the issues. I mean, it's close, but it doesn't quite address it. And so that's what this is attempting to look at, a source-based instead of site-based path. And that would be nice. I would recommend that if you put this forward from the tag, then at least you'll get attorney review on whether, because you already have a site-based one for attorneys to review now. This would give you a source-based attorney review, and that'd provide SBCC more info for consideration, because they'd have the analysis of the state attorney general on both views. So I would argue that'd be worth considering for that. So that way the attorneys will give you the full legal opinion on which views to look at.
Thanks, Greg. So the 0.80, you're saying that's a source-based number?
So this, yeah, my same section, R4 or 5. This is all based on source view, source-based view, where the one we just passed moments ago was based on a site view. So if you were to pass this as a parallel proposal, then you would have legal analysis on site versus source based at the council, and the council could actually determine the legal risks with the two different views. If you ignore this one and just go with the other one, you may not get the full legal analysis from the Attorney General.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Larry, your hand is up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I want to make a correction on a statement I said earlier. It's the RCW 42.30.120 that everybody should be looking at. But also, coming back to what I originally said, the natural gas CO2 number here at 11.7, for 2 years, I've told you it's wrong. The federal government says it's wrong. Your own engineer said it's wrong. So how could you ever use this chart to begin with? Then you got Commerce, Washington State Commerce came up with this 0.80 number, okay? And when the utilities are required by law to come up with this number isn't even in the ballpark, okay? This is a fantasy number that Commerce has projected might happen. And now you've put it in there like it has happened. And this is wrong. You have to use present data. Thank you.
Hey, Larry, what are the right numbers, in your opinion, for the other factors other than electricity? Because you've said they're wrong, but we haven't gotten we did get proposals early in the residential cycle from, I think it was Gary, adjusting the natural gas number.
I gave Stowen the number months ago, 6-8 months ago. And it was confirmed by the engineer on the State Building Code Council the lady engineer from McKinstry that I was correct. And that number has never changed, okay? It's something that Dave Balon came up with in his fantasy, okay? And that's not true. And anybody that knows anything about carbon input, you know that the heavier the fuel is, the more carbon footprint it's going to have out. It's pure physics. And this board has continually denied it. And it's not right. So how could you even consider this table with those kind of numbers that are fraudulent? And when you go to the electricity, a large percent of your electricity over there is fired by coal fuel and not dam related. And so as Commerce came up with this number, if that number was used by a utility, they'd be fined because the utility knows it's not correct, but yet you continually input it in there. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Henry.
So I thought we just voted to remove this from the section. So this seems kind of out of place. Second, changing CO2 values of electricity grids seems very much not involved with EPCA. The original proposal that we approved was well thought out and well documented. So this seems kind of just like a random throw a dart at 0.8 again. But if we are going to go this route, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to go back to 0.44 CO2s, pounds of CO2 per kilowatt hour. Thank you.
There's no motion on the table, as far as I know, in 0.44, if we use that one, then
Can I amend it?
proposal. What was that?
Can I add an amendment then?
Well, there's no motion, right? So you can't, the motion that doesn't exist. So if you wanted to make a motion, you could, but I don't believe there's a motion to adopt this yet.
Okay.
And then I guess if we, so there's two pieces of this code change proposal. One is using the electricity factor from 0.44 to 0.8. And the other one is adding footnote B at the bottom. So those are the two pieces of it. So if we moved it back to 0.44, then I guess we would only be voting on B below. Okay, Dave Balon.
I move to disapprove this proposal.
Okay, we have a motion to disapprove this proposal. Is there a second?
Hey, Shell, point of order. We still haven't gotten through the list of the original people meant to talk on this thing. I mean, you just totally forgot about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take the motion as not what I had intended. I did.
Wait, this is Dwayne. I want to second that because this is the traditional way. You make a motion to approve or disapprove, and then you discuss. So now there's a motion on the table, and people can discuss or modify.
Yeah, point of order. The chair already had a way we were supposed to do this set up, and then he left it and forgot, then went halfway through the discussion and then just let anybody talk. So I think like the order has already been really messed up.
I didn't do what I said I was going to do. As Chris, were you also going to make a motion? Was that?
No, I just wanted to make my comment from an hour and a half ago that I haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, the motion, I gave the floor to someone and they made a motion. So I will make sure that everybody who was on the list gets a chance to talk before we vote on the motion as I normally would. So we have a motion to disapprove. We have a second for that. And Dave, as the maker of the motion, do you have anything in addition to say?
Let me at least point out that with the exception of electricity, all the other values are from the EIA standard reference for carbon in fuel, indirect use of fuels. I don't know what Larry's numbers are, but those are the ones that the EIA uses, and it's used throughout the federal government, actually, that particular table. Electricity varies with locality. It varies considerably from in a range that's, you know, around 0.4 up to around 1.5, depending on where you are and who's providing your electricity.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Dave. The people I had on the list that were meant to talk earlier were Chris, Larry, Lisa, and David Reddy. So thank you for reminding me, Chris. You are up next.
Thank you. Well, Dave basically kind of answered my question. I maybe want him to expound on a little bit. In his earlier statement, he mentioned that 0.0 was a made up number, maybe coming from something in gas companies' heads. Looking through the Commerce study, there are 10 different scenarios that range up to 1.7. So I'm just curious where Dave got that, and that study also includes a value of 0.80 in one of the scenarios. So I'm curious where Dave Balon got that statement that gas companies are making this up.
The 0.8?
Yeah, the 0.8. It's in the Commerce study. It wasn't the scenario they choose, but it's one of the scenarios that it came out of.
Well, as far as I can tell, they never documented it at all. But that may be that they actually had a detailed understanding and evaluation of both source energy and various other things. I've never even heard a study that actually got that number.
So you didn't look into the Commerce study that we were presented? I mean, we were just
we were
presented. Hold on, Dave. Can I please speak? I have the floor. The Commerce study we were presented last time, if you guys remember, it was a very light PowerPoint presentation, and there was no backup from the study that was done. So after that, we got the release of all the different scenarios. I'm looking at them right now. There's a reference with increasing CED. There's a high natural gas prices, increasing CED. There's all these different scenarios, and one of those scenarios is 0.80. So, did you not see the backup information from the Commerce study?
Yeah, but the rest of the story was that the study recommended a particular value based on the probabilities of any of the scenarios, and that's where 0.44 came from. I didn't I didn't make that one up. That came from them.
Yeah, but your comment that 0.80 comes from nowhere points me to believe that you didn't actually look at the study, because I'm looking at it right now and it's there.
Yeah, well,
so you just misspoke and tried to make it seem like we made 0.80 up.
0.80 has been in this table since 2018. That's at least 3 years before the Commerce study was done.
Yeah, and the Commerce study came, and obviously in one of the scenarios came out with 0.80, so it's obviously in the realm of possibility and not just a made-up number. I just get tired of being demeaned by a TAG member like consistently whenever he talks. So that's my main point.
That's just me, right? You're just tired of me being.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to do. Yeah, exactly. And you're making misstatements. You say stuff that obviously we have a backup for, and say that we don't have any backup for it.
Well, I do have backup for it. I just don't have backup for that number specifically.
Explain to me what. So that's my original question. If you could explain to me the data that you got that brought you to the conclusion that 0.80 was a number made up in gas company's head and not something that Commerce says is one of the possibilities that we could face.
Okay, what I've heard today are a few different people suggest that other people made up numbers, and I've heard it from multiple people that other people are just making stuff up. I guess let's be clear, if we don't agree with something, that doesn't mean somebody else made it up. It's important that we are respectful of each other, and that we are we cite our data sources where we have them, and that we're forward about where we're getting our information, and that we're also very respectful of each other. So I've heard several people today suggest that other people made stuff up, and maybe they just don't understand it, and that's an awkward way of asking, where did you get your information? So maybe a better way would be to ask somebody where they got their information from. And I've listened to it a few times, and not every time requires bring it up, but I figured I've heard it from enough people today that let's just I don't know, let's just cite sources and then also ask other people to cite their sources if we don't understand where they're coming from. I think that would just be a way to maintain.
Sounds good. I can share my screen to show you where the 0.80 is, where I'm getting my sources from.
I understand where it's coming from. There was the TAG had a presentation on it, and I believe that it's part of the mix, one of the range of options, which is how you characterize it. I believe that's
Exactly.
real characterization. Okay, we have so that was Chris. Next I had Lisa was on the list of people to talk a while ago. I don't see your hand up, Lisa.
I was just going to reiterate the idea of if this table, if it's determined that the table is no longer needed, would the proponent be willing to strike the table, but it based on all the other things that have happened up until now, perhaps it's no longer a valid idea. But that was all I was going to bring up again.
Okay, thanks. David Reddy also had his hand up earlier.
Sorry, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, and then I have Greg Johnson, and then Larry and Liz.
Yeah, so striking the table would be fine if we included something regarding note B and somehow, and it doesn't have to be the electric utility. It could be, and maybe we could do something with the Department of Commerce, like, so we say site-based energy that was already previously passed, but which is adjusted based on Department of Commerce emission factors for different sources or something like that, because that would allow us to, because all utilities report to the Department of Commerce on emissions factors. And so, I mean, if there's some way to capture the actual emissions a building causes in that factor, then that would be fine. So I don't know if along those reasonings, is someone, I don't know if other people are agreeable to something along those lines of thinking.
I'm not sure where you're going exactly, Greg, but if you're suggesting a new study be done.
I'm suggesting we take existing data from the Washington Department of Commerce, because all utilities have to report their emissions values. If we take their emission values, and you could do it for both electric and gas, and you could use something along those lines for adjusting, making adjustments to site-based approach that we just did on Johnny's. So that way, I mean, you're not ignoring the elephant in the room that your electricity is not as clean as we'd like it to be.
That sounds like a new study that you're suggesting, and I guess you could suggest that such a study is done and that it inform the MVE committee or the council or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really, it's not a study, it's a report, but nuance. Every year the Department of Commerce collects reports, and that's based on what Chris was just alluding to when he was referencing the presentation. Well, that's based on the same data source. Department of Commerce is where he got some of that data. And so I'm basically focusing on that note B on the screen. How I wrote it up in the proposal is I wrote the serving electric utility defines what the values are. Obviously, if we strike the whole table, then we wouldn't be going off the table. But if there's a way to say we're going to take data that's reported to the Department of Commerce, and we're going to use that to adjust your site energy, and that would be more of an apples to apples compare, closer to an apples to apples as opposed to the apples to orange comparison that we're so it's kind of tailing off that B. So being okay to let go of the whole table, but then we're still, and it's hard to do this on the fly, you know what I mean, talking through, but kind of saying, is there a way we can just take note B and zero in on that and incorporate?
Okay. Larry, you're up next.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Hi, Larry.
Okay. Stowen has all the documentation about the natural gas carbon factor from the federal government, from engineers, from your engineer on the staff, that number is way out of line. And for Dave Balon to say what he said is wrong, okay? And Stowen has all that information. It was presented to you guys at the council last fall. It was represented in the spring, all the documentation from the EPA. This has to change. And your engineer even confirmed from McKinstry that that was correct. And for Dave Balon to keep bringing this up and stringing it along is wrong. Let's get the documentation from Dave Balon and then publicize it. And if I'm right, he owes me an apology. Thank you.
Larry, I think we need to keep this a little bit.
Well, no, because this is what happens. People throw the wrong stuff out and then they ride over you on it. And then it's 2 years now that you've known about this and you still haven't fixed it when you've had the documentation in front of you. And that's not right.
What I was saying, Larry, is let's try to keep this a little less on the personal attack side.
It's not a personal attack. It's not a personal attack. It's an attack about facts. And when you don't have the documentation to present the facts, then you shouldn't be speaking about it. And that's what happens at this a lot of times. And I've more than documented what I've said here. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Liz, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. Liz Reichart, Department of Commerce. You know, Greg, I really appreciate your comment about using Commerce's fuel mix study to do utility-specific emissions rates. I have less of a comment on whether or not, you know, the emissions factor table should stay in here, and more of just the delineation between short-term and long-term marginal emissions rates. Correctly cited earlier, the National Renewable Energy Lab study was used to come up with this 0.44 number. And it was meant to align our codes with CETA, which became law in 2019. CETA applies to all electric utilities serving retail customers in Washington. And this is the long run marginal emissions rate for electricity in Washington. So the rate remains above zero despite the 100% clean requirement due to the transition provisions of CETA and the effect of Washington's electricity consumption on our emissions in other states. So just wanted to throw that out there. I definitely don't know everything about the NREL study, but I do know that this change to 0.44, which was reflected in the 2021 codes, represents a long run view. Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. Andrea, you're next.
Thank you. I think to Gregory's point earlier, it would be fantastic to utilize statewide data from Department of Commerce. I think that's just a matter of asking. Yeah, and I think that makes the most sense. And I had another point, but it completely like got out of my mind. So never mind.
Hey, we've all been at this for many hours now. Kevin, you're next.
Yeah, wondering about a friendly amendment here in the footnote B, if must might be changed to may, or if that just adds more complication to enforcement.
The reason why I'm not spending more time with her.
I guess that's a question to Greg, the proponent.
I'm well, I mean, looking through the crystal ball, it seems like the carbon emissions table, at least from my read, is that that's going to go away because altogether. And I do like your suggestion for May on the note B, and I guess if we could somehow keep note or get note B is what we gets added to that gets passed, and that's an addition to Johnny's, then that would be in some way we can incorporate. I think that would be a good approach.
If just from a technical standpoint, if we remove the carbon emissions table, then electric utility carbon emissions factors would not make sense.
Unless you did it as a percentage of site-based energy usage. So you change it from, you say your site-based energy factors may be scaled based on the energy source being used. So if you said site-based energy may be scaled based on the energy source being used at that geographical location according to Department of Commerce data.
Okay, I would suggest that if you wanted to do that, that you would come up with a proposal or come up with something for the MVE committee. I don't know that we want to wordsmith and write new kinds of code language in the next 15 minutes. I think I just want to caution against spending all of our time on writing that kind of thing on the fly. Oh, Krista just has some things to suggest. But Krista, if we don't have an emissions factor, we can't have emissions factors used in an energy use format.
Yeah, a lot of this is adjusting on the fly because we had a proposal that killed the whole emission factor table. And so that's trying to merge this. It makes it kind of hard to do on the fly. But if you want me to come up with language for the MVE committee, I'd be happy to do it. It'd be like a single sentence or so that references it.
Yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome to do that kind of thing. We have 15 minutes left, 13 minutes left, and I don't think we could write that in 13 minutes and agree on it. Okay, we have 13 minutes left. We could always extend this meeting because we're having so much fun. But let's keep our comments pithy and to the point. And we do have one more proposal to consider after this, if we get there. Otherwise, the other proposal will probably just get kicked to the MVE committee to make a decision on, because I think reconvening the tag for a proposal and a half might be maybe not the best use of all of our summers. Okay, so Andrea, you're next.
Sorry, I had to unmute. I remembered my other point, and that was just to remind everybody that we're spending a lot of time talking about these, but our charge from the legislature is not to reduce carbon in buildings. It's only to reduce energy use by 70%. So just wanted to throw that out there for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. Poppy.
So along those lines, I think that submitting this is a little bit confusing, and the way that it would be implemented seems like it's a bit confusing. I'm not opposed in principle to submitting alternative options out of the tag, but with the comprehensive nature of the combination of the prescriptive changes and the performance changes, path changes that we just approved, this feels confusing, and mainly from a practical perspective in terms of its implementation. So my question is the implication that this would just be used for the performance path, or would we bring this back into the prescriptive path? What seems like that should be parallel if one's on carbon and the other one's on energy. And then if it goes back into the prescriptive path, are we then reverting that whole thing back to carbon, the normalization table and all the credits table, and everything becomes back to carbon and to this new number that isn't what Commerce presented as part of their analysis and that we already approved before? So that, I guess, is kind of a long question, but my main question is, what are the implications of adopting this if we did put this forward? Is the proponent suggesting that we go back and change everything and reconvert it back to carbon?
Obviously, at the time when I wrote this proposal, I couldn't see anyone else's proposal. And I also couldn't foresee what path we were going to go to accept what versus what. So this was written based on the code that was the 2021 code that was adopted.
Okay. Ty.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to briefly, and I'll make this quick so we can get out of here, but I just want to briefly acknowledge that continuing to rely on the numbers that come out of the target achievements of CETA while ignoring the impacts of the CCA, the Climate Commitment Act, is incredibly frustrating. The natural gas system will be decarbonizing as well. And while we look to the future for electricity, we're not affording the same benefit to the natural gas system. I don't think that's just nor fair, so I would encourage that be included as we evaluate further.
Thanks, Ty. Larry. Larry, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
At the last meeting, the Avista person tried to talk about the electric rate and you cut him off. And those people have those answers, but you cut him off before he could answer you on that, Shell. And it varies. It varies dramatically depending on what's happening at the time of the year. And those are the people that we need to have here to come up with that carbon rate, because they're the people that actually know. You can't send it out to Commerce and have someone guess this thing. And that's what's happened. Thank you.
Larry, again, you're saying people have guessed it, people have done some amount of analysis there. And I think we need to be respectful of what people have done as far as analysis. Dave Bailam.
We have a motion on the table. I'd like to vote on it. I'll call the question if in fact.
Think you're the last hand up, so if you don't call the question, it will get voted on.
All right, I'll lower my hand.
Okay, the motion on the table is to disapprove 039, which is what we see in front of us. No, is that? Sorry. It's been a long time.
That's the motion.
That is the motion. Okay. That's the motion on the table. Let's take a roll call vote on this one.
My internet was a bit sketchy. I did not hear that clarification completely. What are we voting on? I super apologize. I know it's been a long day.
No worries. I'll be very clear. The motion is to disapprove proposal 039, which is what we see in front of us.
Damon Doyle, are you there, Damon? Mike Fowler,
Yes.
Dwayne Johnson,
Yes.
you're voting no?
I said yes. Did you hear me?
Oh, okay. Obviously, my ears are not up to snuff anymore either. Dave Balon,
Yes.
Jonathan Jones,
Yes.
David Reddy,
Yes.
Gary Hickenen,
Abstain.
Andrea Smith,
No.
Irina Respetness,
Abstain.
Poppy Storm,
Yes.
Albert Rooks,
Yes.
Henry Odom,
Yes.
John Lay,
Yes.
Patrick Hayes, Luke Howard,
Yes.
Jason Carter,
No.
Jeanette McHugh,
No.
Jonah Kinchie,
Yes.
motion carries 11-3 with 2 abstentions.
Okay, motion carries. Exactly one more proposal. We have 4 minutes to consider it. My guess is we are not going to be able to finish consideration of it. So I'm going to say, does anybody have the heart to extend the meeting or kick it to the MVE committee? So I don't want to convene the tag just to consider this one proposal. So if anybody wants to extend the meeting, I will entertain a motion to do that. Otherwise, we are going to kick it.
Albert makes a motion to extend the meeting and finish the work of the day.
Okay.
And that extension is for how many minutes?
Yeah.
30?
How about 15?
How about 15?
I accept the friendly amendment.
Okay, then I second that.
Okay, we have a motion to extend the meeting by 15 minutes. I am going to take a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
I heard one nay.
That's Andrea. It's only because I can't stay past 4.
Yeah, I'm really sorry that anybody has to stay past 4, including myself. Okay, meeting is extended. Without further ado, let's consider proposal 15, which is the most exciting yet. No, I just said that to try and make you want to stay. All right, so proposal 15. So we had just tiny bit of history. We had that the tag before and the council had moved some water heaters indoors to try and retain heat. This, it was an energy saving measure. This was very controversial. And so we now have a proposal on it to change it. So this is Kevin, right?
You betcha.
Go for it, Kevin.
Thank you, Shell. So that's a good introduction. And just to spell this out, the code as it sits really doesn't allow gas water heaters. However, with the modifications we're making, it's a conceivable there could be a gas water heater. And therefore, this needs to get re-examined because it would actually make the installation of some water heaters onerous. And I don't think that would meet the economic requirements of the code, specifically tankless water heaters and gas heat pump water heaters. And I think you can read my purpose of the change, but I'll quickly summarize that a tankless water heater, the point of this section is standby losses from a tank type water heater. Tankless water heaters don't have this problem. That's the whole point. Also, gas heat pump water heaters, at least the ones being designed for residential use, also don't have significant tanks and therefore standby losses. So it makes no sense to put these things indoors or require them to be indoor within the thermal envelope. And therefore they could be in a garage or, in this case of a gas heat pump water heater, outside, which is where the manufacturer intends for them to be. And that's it. Thank you for getting consideration.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Gary, your hand is up.
Yeah, motion to approve. I think this is pretty low risk, pretty reasonable changes here. This should not be controversial at all, since the main point was, again, trying to reduce jacket losses and so I'm just motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Damon has a second. Gary, you've kind of spoken. Do you want to speak again?
Nope.
Okay.
Thanks.
Damon, you're up.
Thank you, Jill. So have we now changed it in order for striving for EPCA compliance to allow federal minimum water heaters?
Yes, my understanding is we passed a prescriptive thing, we've also passed a performance thing, and both of them has passed, to the best of my understanding, allow federal minimum efficiency tankless or federal minimum efficiency gas appliances.
Okay, and the reason I asked that, then that would, I haven't dug into it, but I presume that the federal minimum efficiency water heaters still include naturally aspirating water heaters. And if that's the case, we need to address that. We do not want to put naturally aspirating gas water heaters inside conditioned space. So perhaps this motion needs to be amended if that's the case. Hopefully some other folks will jump in on that, perhaps Dave or Henry.
Do we allow naturally aspirated water heaters?
Well, if that's the federal minimum. I mean, I know they're still out there. You can go to Home Depot and buy one tomorrow. So
0.62 water heater is minimum, and it's naturally aspirated.
So these are vented naturally aspirated.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Yes. We sort of do.
Okay, so
Really hard to do these days, but yes, we do.
So the concern is this is a serious health concern if we're putting naturally aspirated water heaters and requiring them to be in conditioned space.
Yeah.
So I think we need to add that to the list of exceptions. Unless we want to fill homes with carbon monoxide.
Yeah.
Allow other people to speak.
Isn't that already covered in the mechanical code? You can't put naturally vented next to like bedrooms and stuff.
Yes.
Well, if it's in conditioned space at all, it's a health hazard.
Yeah, it might be covered in mechanical code already is all, but.
I think it is.
It only applies to specific types of use spaces, not all condition space.
Can I simplify this by offering an amendment? Add number 4, naturally aspirating gas fueled water heaters.
Proper term is atmospheric vent. Is that true?
Perhaps, I don't know. We've always called them naturally aspirating. But I would change that to vented.
Vented.
Yes. So I offer that as an amendment, if there's a second.
Is that the language that you want,
Yes.
Damon?
Yes, thank you, Krista.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, and the person who made the original motion was Gary?
Yes.
Okay, so if you and Damon agree on it, then there needs to be nothing else on about it, so. Okay, so that's part of the motion now. David, ready?
I think if I recall, when this was reviewed by the TAG previously, it was in the context of you would now be required to use a heat pump for domestic water heating, and moving it into the thermal envelope in combination with using a heat pump for space heating made sense. I guess I'm questioning whether this whole provision even makes any sense. I mean, we could keep adding exceptions. I mean, there's other exceptions where I think the UEF one covers the split heat pump situation, but I guess it kind of indirectly addresses it. And what we're really, I think, focused on is the storage tank. If there is a storage tank, having that in the conditioned space, isn't it? So I'm wondering if we should revise it to, if we have it, the storage tank of service hot water system shall be installed within the building thermal envelope, and then that kind of solves our problems. With the exception of the atmospheric vented gas water heater.
I heard some suggestions. I'll see if anybody else wants to take those up, or anybody wants to make a motion on it. David, Balon, David Red, you still have the floor if you wanted to make a motion on something. Dave Balon, otherwise you have the floor.
I guess, I would make a motion to revise it to storage tanks of service hot water systems shall be installed within the building thermal envelope, and then eliminate the exceptions with the except for the one that was just added. And does that cover the gas heat pump case? I'm not familiar with that technology enough to know. Does that address your gas heat pump case?
Yes, it would.
So Gary and Damon, are you on board with this thing? Or do you need time?
No, I prefer the way it was written originally.
Okay.
And that the exception number 1 that we passed previously, I would like that for that to remain as well. You know, the CO2 danger with atmospheric vented water heaters is huge. The deal with heat pump water heaters in conditioned space, if they're not properly vented, are doing a disservice in a heating dominated climate like ours. It's stripping heat from the house. It's taking heat from the house to heat the water. So you're in a vicious circle where you're heating the house and taking the heat away. So, and since most of those are beyond 2.0 UEF, having them in semi-conditioned space like a garage makes a lot of sense. So
okay.
if we take all that out, then we've gone the wrong direction.
Okay, so it's not accepted by the seconder of the initial motion. So David, ready, if you want to make a motion, we'll look for a second on it and be an amendatory motion to do what you suggested. David, ready, I guess, if you wanted.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make a motion. I think we can make it work the other way.
Yep, okay. All right, we're to Dave Balon.
Yeah, I guess my comment after all this is mostly harmless. We should just go ahead and pass it.
Kevin.
Might not be relevant, but it seems like the only thing left is electric resistance water heaters. There are no heat pump water heaters at the UEF less than 2, I don't think, on the market. So maybe this could be vastly simplified, but whatever.
Okay, Larry.
You there? Am I there?
Yep. I hear you.
Okay. I want to call about natural draft water heaters. That's what the industry uses. If you go to the International Fuel Gas Code or the National Fuel Gas Code, you can easily put these in a house if you follow the instructions to the letter for the venting. And that's what the inspection is supposed to do. We use a lot of natural gas water heaters over here, okay? Naturally vented. And there is no terrible thing if you follow the rules like you're supposed to, like was been stated. We've been doing it for a lot of years, and even in the tight homes. And if we're bringing outside air in, it's even better. But we don't put them in bedrooms. We don't put them in bathrooms. And you have to have the air changes, and you have to prove that. And that's what the International Fuel Gas Code is. So to ban atmospheric vented gas water heaters is wrong by what the statements were put here. That's in the International Fuel Gas Code. It's in the National Fuel Gas Code how to do it properly. And I can't help if people don't know how to read the rules and follow the instructions. And that's what happens here. We get people who have had bad experiences by poor installations. But if you follow the installations correctly, you won't have these problems. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry. Lisa.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to point out 2 details quickly, that an exception is just that. It's not banning anything. It's basically saying that we have this requirement in the code, and these are the exceptions to that requirement of the code, should you choose to use them. So that's a key point. And the next thing I would like to say is that even though the detail about atmospheric vented gas water heaters is captured in the mechanical code, we do very often run into the issue where something is omitted, or there's something like this where it says that it shall be installed within the building thermal envelope. And then you got the mechanical code that says, well, you can't do it for that particular piece of equipment. You've got 2 codes, and now we have to decide which one supersedes the other. So the more information you can provide in the energy code, it will reduce confusion. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. So you're generally in support of what the exceptions and the clarity?
A long way of saying I'm in support of what's on the screen. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Albert. And then we're going to go.
Thanks. I'm in support of what's on the screen too. I think Damon's points are well taken. Houses are getting tighter, and in the winter, in either side of the mountains, it's not very difficult to depressurize a house and bring in that CO2 that he's mentioning. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I'm going to risk a voice vote on this to save a minute or two. So we have a motion to approve what's on the screen, proposal 15, with an additional exception that was suggested today. All in favor of approving this, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, and with that, thank you so much for the marathon session. We got through every single proposal that was made, and we have sent packages on to the MVE committee, and things will happen there as well. So for a couple of you that hoped for slightly different things, you are more than welcome. You're encouraged to suggest something to the MVE committee, and you can send it to Krista for language, or you can show up to MVE committee. But ideally, if it's code language you're proposing, you send it in advance so people can look at it before that meeting. Thank you so much for being here all day, and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Yeah.
Jill.
Thanks, everyone, for all your work.
Good job, Jill.
Good
job,
job
Chell.
bringing it in under the 15-minute wire. Great job.
Yes.
Yeah, Chell, thanks for that today. A lot of work done.